All right. So, what are the pieces of the job search that you find maybe most daunting or that you're most nervous about at this time?
Are you looking for verbal answers?
Yes, please.
Um, Probably the interview for me.
Which part, when it comes to the interview, is it the tell me about yourself question? Is that what gets you?
Yeah, actually, that one is quite difficult because where do you start? Where do you finish? What do you include? How do
Mm-hmm.
you know if you're rambling? And
And is it
I don't
okay to
know. Yeah.
ramble? That's a big thing too, right? Like sometimes we can't help it, right? We can't help. I'm a rambler, so that always hits home with me because I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna go off track. I know it. It's how do we get back on track? That is important. I think, and we'll talk about this a little bit today, but a lot of times we focus so much on how to avoid things going wrong that we never prepare how to bounce back when they do. And so it's kind of like someone who memorized a speech and gets up on stage, forgets one word, and the whole thing goes to shit, right? It's much better to be able to sort of improvise when things go wrong rather than try and prevent every potential scenario, right? So these are definitely things we can dig into. And one of the ways in which we're able to improvise is by knowing our story, knowing what we're trying to get across, and being able to communicate that effectively, right? So when it comes to telling your stories, we'll get in. Well, let's just kick it off. I'll let you know who I am before we dig in here. My name is Martin Mcgovern. I am a career coach and founder of careertherapy.com. And basically, my view on things is that when we start the job search, we're told a lot of things online that sound great, but don't actually map to reality. So, find your passion and all these different things are really important things to maybe think about on our own. But when it comes to actually selling yourself for a job and getting the job, we have to switch our perspective from the self-focused kind of self-help world into the more sales-focused, how do I provide value to a company approach to things. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. How do you shift your pitch a little bit from too much of a spotlight on you to a little bit more of a shared spotlight, or even, shifting the spotlight completely over to the company so you can reduce your anxiety, improve your confidence, and speak with a lot more confidence. And really at the end of the day, confidence is just being calm and being able to roll with the punches. So I have a background in marketing and advertising. So a lot of my stuff is based in that, sort of rooted in that communications world. And I merged that in with a lot of like therapy techniques, cognitive behavioral therapy kind of stuff in order to help folks navigate this search a little bit more effectively. And kind of the fun sort of cliche is I used to help companies get your money. And now I try to reverse engineer what we did there to help you get money back from them. So we'll be talking a lot today about different sort of ways to look at this stuff that are less daunting and maybe even fun if you want to dig in that far, at least neutral. I'll try and get you to neutral about some of these things. So congratulations, you're going to be getting into the job search soon if you're not already. It's going to be a big deal to move on from the boot camp and start the hunt, right? But typically what that looks like is this, right? So who here is ready to just have that look of dismay at the job boards on a regular daily basis? How does this photo make you feel? How are you feeling about the whole task at the end of the day?
Uh, well, I know exactly what that feels like because that's kind of been me for years now. So
Yeah, for sure. It's all of us at many points in our life, right? So how do we actually like avoid this, viewpoint where we're just like so stuck in the black hole of online job boards? Has anyone been signing up for the job boards and just been getting the emails and the updates sent to is anyone just getting flooded with tons and tons of job listings lately?
Yes.
How does it make you feel when you just open your email and there's like 50 new things in there?
Kind of hopeful at first.
At first, but what happens after a while?
Start to read them and you start to, I guess, overthink.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in my case.
And what are the thoughts? What are the overthoughts that happen?
Am I qualified for this? What am I gonna have to do to prove that I am qualified for this? Like what if I don't hear back? Things of that nature.
Yeah. And these job listings, first of all, you're being sent to the most competitive listings, right? Because they're in an email being sent to thousands of people. But also, these job boards are written by people who have like no clue what this job is or what they're hiring for or what they're looking for. They just put every possible thing in the book down, hoping someone comes through, right? So there's a lot of things that we can think about, but one of the things that we'll talk about is how those are just marketing documents for the company as well. And it's almost like a battle of the egos. They think that they're the best company on the planet looking for the best candidate. And you're like, well, let me tell you about all my insecurities and how I'm not ready yet. And they're like, well, we don't want to work with you because we feel so superior. But what they're not telling you is that the last person just quit because they were burnt out, or they laid off 30% of their workforce 6 months ago and now they're rehiring. They don't tell you the insecure bad things, right? So there's this weird mismatch. And a big thing that I want to get across today is like, learn how to treat companies the way they treat you. They're not being dishonest, but they're giving you their marketing spiel. And I'm not encouraging you to be dishonest. I'm just encouraging you to give your marketing spiel, right? And so it's almost like this level that we're playing at, where you get to treat them how they treat you. And, even all the way down to the job offer, right? If you get 2 or 3 job offers, or you're waiting on a few offers, like you have the power to rescind job offers the same way they have the power to rescind job offers, right? So there is some equality here that we can strive towards. It doesn't always feel that way when we're just like begging for, someone to look at our resume, but hopefully some of the things we talked about today will put us in a better spot. And the way that we're going to go through this is by looking at a them first mindset, talking about how to share your unique stories, and discussing how to perfect your postgrad pitch. So at the end, I'll actually give you a template that you can use to begin practicing your pitch and sharing it out with the world. So when I say put them first, the main thing that I'm saying here is that it's not about you at the end of the day, which goes counter to a lot of the advice on the internet, right? The advice on the internet is like, find your passion, advocate for yourself, all these different things. And I'm pro all that stuff as personal development and as knowing like what you need to survive and knowing all these different things. But when we go sell, it tends to fall on deaf ears, right? So what we're going to talk about in this section is how to switch from a me first to a them first approach, how to make it all about their wants and needs, and how to build trust and rapport with a company. So what are the things that you think you should not say when you go talk to companies after graduating the boot camp? What do they not want to hear?
That I'm applying to 50 different places and just want a job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't care about them in particular.
Right. Why do you want to work here? I need a paycheck. So does everybody. So let's move past the thing that we all know already and move on to the thing that we want to hear, right? What other things do they not want to hear you say?
Reasons why they won't pick or why they shouldn't pick you.
For sure. For sure. And one of those reasons is to say something like this, which I hear from almost every bootcamp grad that I've worked with over the years. I recently graduated and I'm excited for the opportunity to learn in this role, receive mentorship, and build my career. Now, what do you think is wrong with this statement?
Right.
It's all
They
about
want
me.
somebody.
What was that?
Go ahead.
It's all about
Spencer.
me.
I think you're right.
It's all about me. It's all about insecurity, right? Because what do they hear? What do you think they hear when you say something like this?
Teach me.
Teach me. Hi, I'm inexperienced, unemployed, and need you to teach me. I will cost this company a lot of money, right? So if we say, hey, I'm here to learn, I can't wait to be mentored. I'm excited to build my skill set and learn how to break into this world. All they're hearing is cha-ching, cha-ching, this person's expensive, right? When in reality, what we should prime our minds to think is to say, look, once I get this job, I'm going to have access to Google, right? Once I get this job, I'm going to have time to figure things out. Sure, in the interview, it's high pressure, it's all that stuff. But once I get through the interview, they're going to give me time, right? They're not going to say like, hey, it's 10 a.m. We need this exercise done by noon, right? Like that would be a ridiculous request for them to ask. I mean, there might be deadlines and things like that, but generally speaking, you can go to Google, you can take your time, right? So when we're talking to these companies, it's not about, do I have the experience? Do I have the credentials? Do I meet all the qualifications? It's great if you do, but plenty of people get jobs who don't. And the way that they do it is they talk about what they're capable of rather than what they have done in the past, right? I've done these things in the past, which means I'm capable of doing all these things in the future. Even if I haven't done that yet, I could get up to speed on it in 3 to 6 weeks. How are you using that tool and what do you need me to do, right? So it's about being helpful more than being experienced. But in order to know how to be helpful, we have to understand what it is that they need so that we can speak to the things that they need help with, right? Who here has an idea of what the ROI of your role is? Like, what are the things you're going to be applying to, and what impact does that role have on the business? What do you think? Shout it out.
Well, if you're building software, then they're going to be wanting something that they can quickly get to their customers. So that's going to be a big deal for them to.
So if you help them build software, they're going to have happier customers or retain more customers or acquire more customers, right? Acquisition, retention, revenue, these are all things that we can start talking about when we talk about our skills. It's not just I've used Python, it's I've used Python, which means that in the future, when I build tools like this, your customers will be happier. You'll be able, your sales team will be happier because they can do a better job selling with this tool and so on and so forth, right? So you're tying it to the needs of the business rather than just saying, am I good enough, right? Here's my skills. Am I good enough? Will you take a chance on me? Companies don't take chances. Companies make very strategic decisions based on budget and time and all sorts of other constraints, right? They had to sit down and get budget approval for this role, which means someone in the company did an ROI analysis of what this role will bring in for the company. And if you can speak to that need, you're going to stand out amongst other job seekers. All right. So why are they hiring? What was the pain that they were in before they put this job listing up, right? So no company is sitting around saying, boy, we have a lot of money, let's give someone a chance. That's never how they hire. They hire by going, holy crap, our customers are unhappy, let's hire someone. Oh my gosh, we need, to go attract more customers, let's hire someone. Oh my gosh, we have people compliance issues, let's go hire someone, right? It's always coming from this place of like panic, of fear, of anxiety. And if we can address that and make them feel comfortable and confident in our ability to help out with that thing, we're going to be in a good spot. Even if you can't build the website yourself, you can take a lot of the mundane tasks off of the shoulders of the senior person and free them up to go work on other things, which isn't, a way that you contribute to the ROI. And the way that this shows up is most best shown in like your cover letter. Has anyone written a cover letter yet?
I've written them. I haven't written any since we got started in this bootcamp.
What do cover letters typically start with? What's like the first sentence in your cover letter?
It is, I saw this opportunity in X place, to let them know where you found it, I think.
Exactly. I saw this opportunity. I want this job. I have these skills. Give me a thing, right? Yeah. I actually read through someone's cover letter once and every single sentence started with I, me, or my. It was incredible. I was like, how did you do this? This is like an incredible level of writing, self-focused writing. And honestly, like it's really bad for our mental health to be approaching everything in this way. I need this. I want a job. I want this job. I want to do these things. I want to apply these skills. It's good to know all that stuff for ourselves. But when we're going out and we're being so like self-focused, all the rejection feels much more personal, right? If we're saying, I want this role because I think I'm a perfect fit, and then they say you're not a perfect fit, it's crushing, right? If we say, here's a bunch of skills that could help your business, do you need these skills? It distances our sort of ego from it a little bit, right? Like, I'm a career coach. I can write your resume. If you don't want me to write your resume, I don't take it personally, because it's just a resume writing skill. Maybe you don't need a resume rewrite. Maybe you don't want me to write your resume. Maybe you want someone else who's more like you to write your, it doesn't matter, right? It's a skill that's separate from me, right? And this helps so much throughout the job search to just have a little bit of separation between the things that you do for companies and who you are as a person, right? And that's where this like message of like passion and identity and all these different things gets a little bit tied up too much into these job listings, right? God forbid we find our favorite role, right? We want to work for Google. If I don't get a job at Google, I don't even know what to do with myself, right? And Google says no. Oh boy, that's going to be a rough month, right? But if we're like, I want to apply these skills to these types of companies, now we're having a conversation of, do you need these skills? What do you need these skills to do? Do I have the ability to actually help with those skills? And if I don't, here's some people I know that do. And then you are always in this helpful mode of like, I'm here to solve specific problems if you have those problems that need to be solved, right? So very often I'll hear from people, I like to solve problems, right? Has anyone said that? I got into coding because I like to solve problems.
I would never have phrased it that way, but I think that's probably true.
Sure. I mean, I always say like, well, why did you get into web development? And people say, well, I mean, I like to solve problems. I go, great. Someone needs their dog walked. Do you want to solve that problem? And they're like, no, I solve coding problems. I go, great. We're getting specific. Which coding problems, right? Front-end coding problems, back-end coding problems, UX problems, customer problems, you get what I'm saying. So we need to start thinking about the specific problems we solve, right? So as a career coach, I could say, well, I enjoy talking to people about taboo topics like careers and money and things like that. And you're like, cool, good for you, dude. But I'm like, no, I will fix your resume. I will help you write a cover letter. I will do a mock interview, which will prepare you for the interview. Like specific things, that's what companies need to hear, right? So we need to start thinking more about them and their needs. So each person you talk to in the job search is going to have a different need, right? Recruiters will have different needs than hiring managers, will have different needs than CEOs or your networking contacts. What do you think some of these people might be incentivized by? All right. What are the incentives for this person to want to talk to you? Think about the recruiter. What's a recruiter's incentive to talk to you?
Finding someone awesome so that they get you hired, so that then they get commission for having brought a new person into the company that's
Right.
competent and like
So
qualified.
they don't, their entire thing is getting someone hired that the company wants, right? Their job is to get a commission on the placement of this role, right? So their incentive is based on how much does this role get paid? So would a recruiter necessarily want to work with an entry-level person who's coming from a different industry? Or would they rather work with someone who already has a similar job to this one, who's making a lateral or a slightly uptick role to a senior position, right? It's much easier to take someone from Google who's at a mid-level and move them to a senior level in the same type of work than it is to take someone who's never worked in tech and get them their first job, right? The story is easier, the pitch is easier, the company has less friction in what they're gonna, think about. And I talk to a lot of recruiters and they say, we look for big name schools, big name companies, because then I know you're vetted and I have to do less work, right? So when we're entry-level folks or making a career transition and we're talking to recruiters and they get us all hyped up that they're going to find us a job and then they disappear on us, Well, we can take it personally, or we can say, well, I guess their incentives weren't aligned with me right now, right? And that is really how we can start looking at this stuff as incentives. If you can play to someone's incentives, you can make a better pitch into getting the job, right? So what's a hiring manager's incentive? What do they care about when they're looking to hire someone?
Find somebody that'll make their life easier.
Find
And
someone
get the
that'll
job
make their
done.
life easier and make their job easier, right? So someone who will say, I'm here to help you solve these problems, rather than someone who says, I'm here to learn. Someone who's here to learn, well, that puts your manager into a teacher position, right? So now you're not helping solve problems, you're bringing problems to the table, right? Or if we go in and we say, I can do anything, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And they go, I don't want to tell you what to do. I want you to come and tell me what you need to do and then go do it, right? Like that's kind of what managers want. They want you to manage up, right? So managers are looking for that. They're also looking for someone who won't disrupt the team, right? They don't want to hire someone who's going to be a problem on the team. So a big thing that they're looking for is, how do you deal with people? How do you manage conflict? How do you manage stress? How do you manage all these things that get in the way of projects, right? So you can talk to that as well and ease their worries, right? A lot of this is easing their worries. You don't have to worry about me because I know how to manage conflict. You don't have to worry about me because I can learn things quickly. You don't have to worry about me because I will set up meetings with you to tell you what's going on, right? And then we can start having better conversations. And then if you're talking to like a CEO or something, right? They care about industry trends. They care about bigger picture things, right? Or a networking contact. They're just trying to build their network too, so that if they're ever in a position where they need a referral, they can reach out to you. So a lot of this stuff is like already sort of assumed, let's say, right? You don't have to tell someone you're networking with that you want a job, because there's literally no one on the planet who, if they were offered a better job with better pay, with better people, that's closer to home, that has better hours, they wouldn't take it, right? So the baseline knowledge is that everyone who is involved in professional networking is open to a new job, even if they have a job. So you don't have to say, I'm looking for a job. You just have to say, what will I connect with this person about that is about the work that we do? Whether it's, some trend that's going on in the industry, or technology that you're learning, or something that they've written a post about on LinkedIn, talk about those things. And we will help each other in our careers is sort of inferred, right? So that's how I want us to start thinking about this stuff, right? We want to think in terms of what the other person cares about. And when we write emails and when we send messages, always look at it from the perspective of the person reading it. If it's 10 paragraphs long and you received that email, would you want to read it, right? That's how we should put the filter on it. Now, don't be overly cynical. Don't say my most cynical self would tell this person to go F themselves. No, just like in a general day by day, you're going through your email, you're in a decent mood. Would you be able to respond to this, right? I'm going to pause there. Any questions on what we're going over so far? What are your thoughts?
I am getting excited to practice selling myself, which is something I'm not normally excited to do. So
Yeah, right. And I come from marketing, not sales. So like, it's nice to kind of find a way to do this that doesn't seem so skeezy, right? Like if you're just here to help other people, and the question is, do they want your help? If they don't want your help, you don't need to take it personally, because not everyone wants your help, right? But when they want your help, that's when we go, how great, I get to help now, right? Because that's what a job is. It's a company in peril, and you're here to help, right? You get to be the person on the horse riding in, to the knight on the horse riding in to save the day, right? They're in trouble. They wouldn't have posted a job if their company wasn't struggling in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's they just got a ton of investment money and they don't know what to do with it, so they're like, we need to hire people to figure out what to do with this money, or they're losing money and they need to plug a hole in a sinking ship, right? There's all sorts of things, but I'm glad to hear that, Spencer. I'm really glad to hear that.
I do have more questions, but I can
Yeah.
save them until
Oh
the
no,
end.
jump in. Let's make it back and forth.
So with networking, I was having a conversation with Marlene not long ago, and she said that kind of when you make a post, the whole point of the post is to get engagement, which makes sense to me when if I'm like marketing a business, then you want people to like engage and like learn about your product or service and buy it. But just like as a person, I'm not really one to post on social media, but if I was going to, I certainly wouldn't have been thinking about engagement, which maybe is just I need to change my perspective on that. But so I'm just
There's
curious about that in general.
there's a lot of different ways to use social media. One of them is to post for engagement. And for a lot of folks, like the engagement is great because it brings visibility. Maybe they then take those conversations. Someone comments and they follow up with the person in a message and they keep the conversation going. All of that is great. So that is one way to do it. There's a lot of ways to approach social media, though. Something else you could do if you don't want to create posts, because that's a lot of effort, like to write an article or to write an original post. A lot of people get really worked up in their head. I'm someone who gets really traditionally has gotten really worked up in his head about this stuff. It's taken me years and years and years to get comfortable with social media. And even now I'm not like great at it. I'm like mediocre at it at best. But I create podcasts and stuff, and I'm always putting stuff out there just to like keep the engagement and visibility high. And again, I own a business, so it makes sense. But when it comes to like a general person interacting on social media, I do agree with the engagement perspective, but you don't have to like create posts to get engagement. You can just go engage in other people's posts. So the easiest way to engage on social media is to not create anything, is to just go to everyone else's stuff and say, hey, I really like this. Thanks so much for writing this article. Thanks for publishing this. Or, you know, what you said there really sparked this idea for me, and just contribute to the conversation. And then they'll respond to you, and then you can respond to them. Like so many people who have amazing Medium posts that have tons of Medium, you know, comments and stuff like that. If you follow back to their LinkedIn and look at where they posted it on LinkedIn, it has like 2 comments, maybe, or maybe just a like. So if you're the only person that says, hey, I really appreciated this, they're going to see it and they're going to be grateful for you commenting on their post because they put a lot of work into it. And then you could be like, hey, want to grab coffee and talk about the thing you wrote? I think it's really cool. And then you set up a virtual coffee and you do that, right? So definitely, I agree with the engagement ideal. And then there's just tons of different ways to be engaged, right? Passive engagement, active engagement, creation, or just participation. All of them are great ways to go.
Blowing my mind, man. That's awesome.
For sure. And that's the thing with a lot of this stuff, right? As career coaches, we give you the broad strokes. We give you what works for most people, but then you have to say what works for me, right? Like the best kinds of videos that get the most kinds of views are things that I can't make because I'm not a videographer, or I'm not controversial like that, or any number of reasons. I just can't write scripts in that way. Like there's plenty of skills that I don't have. Whereas if someone said like, go learn how to do that, I guess I could, given enough time, or I can double down on the things that work for me. So for me, it's like podcasting and things like that. But, you know, everyone has to sort of find their own sort of way to do this. And with networking, it's like, it could be one-on-one virtual coffees, in-person things, joining professional networks. It could be joining Discord groups. It could be participating in, you know, meetups and helping volunteer for meetups. There's any infinite number of ways to do this. And maybe it's a combination of a bunch of these things, but I would try lots of things and then just kind of find what works for you and still push the envelope a little. You don't want to just say, well, that was uncomfortable and never do that again. Do a little bit further than you think you can go. I'm someone who used to have panic attacks when going to networking events. Thank God that's over. But you can come a long way, right? Like from freezing up in informational interviews and not being able to speak to, you know, leading webinars. It's a growth process. And it's probably good to also think about this in the same way you thought about your skills in class, right? The first time you coded something, it was probably a mess. But as you got better at it, you know, it became less messy and more organized, right? The first time you network or the first time you do any of these things, it's going to be a mess, right? But the more you do it, I actually had someone earlier today, he said, all right, so I used to just be panicked every time I sent an email, but I've done enough of those that now I'm just like, whatever. And I go, that's exactly where I want you to get. I want you to get to whatever, I guess I'll do it. Beep, send it off. Whatever, I guess I'll reach out to this person. They probably won't respond, whatever. And just keep doing it. And like that whatever will turn into good connections, which will then get you excited, which will then keep the process going, right? So once we get past that fear and get to not an excited place yet, but a neutral place of like, I'm just going to send it off because who cares? Like truly, who cares? And the truth is if you've ever, talked with anyone in your career, or had an embarrassing moment, and then you go back and talk to that person, like 5 years later, they're like, I don't remember that. My first networking meeting ever, I ordered hot chocolate at Starbucks because I didn't know what coffee was. And I wore a suit to an ad agency, and it was all just like wrong. Like if you look at it now, I'm like, oh, I could have played that so different. I could have learned what coffee was. And I was back in college, and I reached out to that person years later and was like, hey, remember that time I ordered hot chocolate during that networking meeting? Because I looked at the Starbucks board and like didn't know what anything meant. And he's like, no, I don't remember that at all. Like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, in my head, it was a big deal. And just kind of realizing that what's going on in our head is very often in our head and not in reality. And then we can start getting past that panic through experience, like exposure therapy in a lot of ways. And at a certain point, we'll get to this place where we're like, all right, I'm not nervous about this stuff anymore. Or if I'm nervous, it's a manageable level of nervous. Now, how do I improve my communication? How do I improve my connectiveness? How do I improve my stories? And then we can move into that. It's kind of like stages of development. Overcome the fear, then get good at the skill. But if we try and do them all at the same time, that's where people get flustered. Does that help?
That was very well said, especially that ending bit. Overcome the fear, then get good at the skill. Like, don't try to do it all together, you get flustered.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's something I'm doing right now. I'm doing all sorts of things all the time. But there's, email marketing. I've been doing email marketing for like decades at this point, and I still suck at it. Like, I'm just like, because I used to just be so scared to send emails to people, like professional through like MailChimp and all that stuff. And I just have to keep reminding myself, like, it's just about getting comfortable doing it, not being perfect about it, right? And actually, that's a reminder. I have to go write an email now. But, we all have our parts where we struggle and parts where we're comfortable, and just like leaning into your best stuff is going to be the best way to go. And this, again, bringing it back to what they want, right? Like as we communicate, once we get past are they going to judge me for reaching out? Then we can actually get into the conversation of like, well, what would they want to hear from me if I did, right? And a lot of times what they're concerned about is the ROI of your role. So like, what's the ROI of my role? Well, if I do it correctly, someone gets a job. So it's like 60 to 200K, depending on the person, right? That's a pretty big ROI. And I know that. So when I'm talking to people, I'm not like, do they like the way I do resumes? Like, that's a moot question. The question is, do my resumes help them get results? If they do, great. If they don't hire me, because then I'm not doing my job right, right? But if I'm not doing it right, that just means that I have to go learn how to do that again and then get better at it. It doesn't mean I suck as a person. It just means maybe my template's outdated, right? So all of this stuff is just your current execution of these skills, not necessarily anything else. And the current execution of these skills does have an ROI, even if it's just alleviating the busy work from the senior developer. Because then the senior developer can go work on the big initiative that they've been putting off. And that big initiative will bring in millions of dollars to the company. And that justifies both your jobs, right? So it's not give me 80K because I want 80K. It's give me 80K because the work I'm doing is going to bring in $1 million. And if you didn't pay me 80K, that'd be weird. Like, this role seems to be budgeted for 60K, 70K, 80K based on what my research says. It's not that I'm worth 80K. Is that this role is worth 80K. So whoever you hire, regardless of whether or not it's me, you should pay that, because otherwise they're probably going to quit because they can find a better job somewhere else, right? So you can be much more practical about this stuff. Granted, the emotions are going to be there. You're not going to be able to avoid them. It's just when they come up, can you rationalize them into a better place, right? And if you're having trouble figuring out like what the ROI, what the business case is for your job, just Google it. Why should I hire a business analyst? Why should I hire a career coach? Why should I hire a front-end coder? Or why should I hire a full stack developer, right? You will find an unbelievable amount of information from blogs all the way to like sales pages of consulting companies to everything in between. And what's wonderful is that you can just sort of borrow their language, steal their inspiration, right? Like go to these pages and it'll say like, hire me to do your web development because I can debug your site, improve your SEO, do X, Y, and Z. And then you just go, LinkedIn, right? And there you go. You've got your like pitch, okay? Don't, you know, maybe take it from a few sources and then put your own spin on it if you really want to jazz it up. But like, that is really at the end of the day, how easy it is to pull off a sales message. And I'm telling you, this is what all the companies do, right? Facebook looks at TikTok and says, well, we need that. And then they add it into Instagram, right? So this isn't theft. This is just business as usual of like, here's what my competitors are doing. How do we mimic and alter and change it up a little bit to fit us? All right. Don't lie, but take the pieces that are relevant for you. Any questions on that? I know that one's a bit, people get a wide variety of reactions to this slide. All right, I'll keep it moving. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, so you're saying basically Google why I should hire this type of role, and then search for how companies that provide consulting services for that role sell that role to other companies, and then take that material and use that for how we talk about ourselves, either on LinkedIn or in an interview or whatever.
Exactly. And you can even say like, why should I so like here it says, why should I hire a business analyst? That's going to give you all of the entrepreneurs and small business owners and large corporations that talk about why they hired them for their business. So you can even look at like the materials that the small business groups are talking about of like, you need to hire an accountant for these reasons. You need to hire a developer for these reasons. And if you haven't done that, you're not growing your business right, right? And then you go, okay, well, now I understand why these companies hire my role. So now I can talk about that, right? Like I know when a school hires me as a career coach, they're also hiring someone to do like customer service because I'm the last point of contact that the student's going to have with the school. So if I do a crappy job or if I piss someone off, that goes right into the reviews on course report, right? So I have to realize that I'm not just a coach. I'm like a customer service representative as well. And so like, these are the things that you start to realize when you start understanding how businesses work, right? If you understand how the business works and you know how you fit into it, all of this becomes a lot easier because then it's not just give me a job because I'm a great person and I have these skills. It's give me a job because it helps your business, not because it helps me, although the transaction has to happen for me to get paid to do the job, but it's because it helps you. You're only hiring me because it helps you. You're not hiring me because it helps me. Right? No one's hiring me as a coach because it helps me be a better coach. That'd be a ridiculous thing, right? So, and just to kind of put it into a different context, Nike doesn't say buy our shoes because our shareholders want more money, right? How ridiculous would that be, right? As a matter of fact, that'd be an amazing marketing campaign that some like Supreme style alternative brand would do. It's like, buy our stuff just because we want money. Like that would be some like, you know, meta thing that some company would do. But generally speaking, every company knows that if they don't sell it to you in the way that you want to hear it, you're not going to buy it, right? Buy our shoes because our shareholders want money doesn't go over as well as, hey, do you like to hike? I love to hike. Do you ever get like, you know, when you're hiking and it's damp or it's rainy, it's really slippery? Yeah, it's really slippery. Well, we have this new hiking boot that is really anti-slip. You should really check it out. Oh yeah, all right. Well, you've already convinced me that I have this problem, or you've reminded me that I have this problem. Now let's go see if we can address this solution. All right. So they build the thing to match the problem. Same with your skills. Don't hire me because I want a paycheck. Don't hire me because it's my passion. Although those things, the passion can be part of the like flowers on the pitch, right? But what you can say is your company needs to improve your customer experience. Where are you struggling with that? Here's my skills that can help. And now you're talking about solving those problems rather than pitching your skills, right? I have X years experience, but I don't really, but I'm like, I need to say that. Now I'm insecure and it's a whole thing, right? No, don't worry about that. Your company has, according to the job listing, it says you need these things. Is that because you're trying to do these things? Yeah, we're trying to engage our customers in these ways. That's cool. I did this one thing at my boot camp that I think could be helpful in that situation. And now you're talking about specific examples. All right. And you're tying it to what they care about. Does that all make sense? I'm seeing some nods. Cool. And then also realize that what's in the job board is also an advertisement. Have you noticed that most job descriptions have like a long paragraph that is all about how great the company is? We're on a mission to change the world and we're going to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? American Airlines, how about you like answer your phone before like 3 hours go by when I call for customer assistance, and then think about changing the world, right? Like these companies are so full of it, right? The truth is that a lot of this stuff is based on ego on their end, right? They're not saying, you know, the last person quit because they were burnt out. They're not saying we're hiring this role, but then we're going to probably fire this role in 6 months because it's just a temporary thing that we don't really need long-term. Like they're not giving you all the information. So why are you telling them all your insecurities and all your secrets, right? Tell them what they need to hear, not everything that's on your mind, right? There's an oversharing that tends to happen in the job search. And you look at these companies' job boards and it's like, our company is so amazing. And it's like, is it, or is it just another company, right? Like, I want you to get hyped about an industry. Like I love education technology, or I love fintech, or I love, you know, sports or whatever it is. But don't get too caught up on each company within that industry, right? If you love electric cars, get excited about the industry of electric vehicles and batteries. Don't get worried about Tesla, because if you look at the actual reviews of people who work at Tesla, they vary. Some people have amazing times, some people have terrible times. And I can tell you, I go from a phone call with someone who's like, my dream job is Google and I'm going to die if I don't get a job there, to my next call being like, I work at Google and I hate it. I can't wait to quit. Like it's widely varying, and every job is just dealing with people, right? A company is hiring not because they're doing amazing, but because they've got a bunch of people running around with their hair on fire saying help. All right. So you really only need about 60% of what's in the job description. And then the rest is a conversation of how can I help? If I don't have the skill yet, I can learn it in 3 to 6 weeks based on my previous, knowledge from the boot camp. What do you need me to know? How quickly do you need me to know it? And what do you need us to be able to do within the first 30, 60, and 90 days? I will make sure I hit those deadlines. And if you talk that confidently, they will feel it, and then they'll hire you, even if you don't have the experience. All right. And then the best part is that you are here to ask questions, not to have every answer. As a matter of fact, if you go into an interview and try to have every answer, you're probably going to be looked at like a weirdo. I talked to someone recently and he was like, one of the things I do in the interview is I ask progressively more difficult questions, even ones that I don't know the answers to, just to see when this person will be honest with me about what they don't know. All right. So that's not going to happen in every interview, but if you don't know something, say, I'm not too sure about that. Here's some experience I think might be relevant, but what are you trying to do as a company with that software? And, I could probably get up and running in 3 to 6 weeks. What would you recommend I start looking into to be ready to go on day one? And the best stories I've ever heard is when someone in an interview doesn't know something. The interviewer says, well, we really need the person in this role to know Java or whatever, right? So then the person leaves, sends a follow-up email. I really appreciate the conversation. I'm excited to go learn Java. I'm going to follow up with you in a month and let you know what I've done to improve my knowledge on that topic. And then a month later, they follow up and they say, hey, I've taken these courses on Java. I'm getting the hang of it. Would you like to have another conversation? those are the people that get hired because they don't let it go. They take the feedback and they come back stronger, right? Does that work every time? I don't know. It's hard to say, but I've seen it happen enough times that it's worth mentioning. Any questions there before we move on?
The only thing that I want to know about that is how do you deal with it seems like most of the time you don't get any feedback at all.
Right. That is
Um,
true. So most companies won't give feedback due to legal concerns. They don't want to say something that will get them in trouble. So the most feedback you're going to probably get is we went with someone with more experience. And then that will make you feel really down about yourself because you're like, well, no, everyone says I don't have enough experience, right? Usually that's just their placeholder answer. It's like the it's not you, it's me of the job search. So I would just ignore it. I try not to ask for feedback from people who aren't in a position to give me honest answers. So I don't really typically ask it from interviews because what do these people know, right? They might even give you an honest answer, but then the next person you interview with doesn't care about that thing. And now you're like changing yourself to the last place that rejected you. So I look at it more as like, if they bring up a topic that you really don't have an answer to, and you know in the interview, like, oh, you know, they brought up this technology, I don't know that technology. That's when we ask questions about the technology, like how essential is this technology to the role? Is it like the number one thing I need to know in the role, or is it like the 10th thing I need to know in this role, right? Is it 20% of the job or 80% of the job? And those are the things that I want us to pay attention to, because you're right, most people won't give you accurate feedback. And that's why setting up mock interviews is really good, because then you can actually get real honest feedback, like hopefully from one of your career coaches, like they'll give you like a legit answer as to like what you could improve. If you try and get it from some Joe Schmo who works at a company who was never trained in how to interview and is just kind of making a gut decision based on like whatever they're feeling that day, yeah, it doesn't really help. Any other follow-ups on that or any other questions on that? All right, I hope I addressed your question in full. Because what companies really care about, beyond even more so than a perfect candidate, because they never find their perfect candidate, is that you are curious and excited and are there to help. And the best way I can talk about the like helpfulness aspect of it is like, if you don't get a job because, and let's say they say something like, we went with someone with more experience, or we're looking for someone with more experience, we're looking for someone more senior. Let's say they say that to you. Then you can say, well, I do know some senior developers. I'd love to introduce them to you if you are interested. Like, just think of how good of a taste that leaves in a hiring manager's mouth when the person that they said no to is still being helpful, right? And best case scenario, you get a friend in there and then that person hires you as a junior the next year, right? So like, these are the kinds of things that I want you to think about. It's not like most of the time when someone gets rejected, they throw up the birds and they walk away and they never talk to that company again. But if you want to build a long career with a lot of opportunities, best thing you can do is be graceful when you get rejected and say, and maybe even ask like specific, like if you say, what could I do better? They're not going to have a good answer for you, but you can say like, in the interview, you mentioned these couple technologies. Are those like essential technologies to learn to work here? And then they'll give you a yes or no answer. And then you can follow up in 6 months and say, I learned those technologies, right? So there's technique here. And, you know, if you have questions on like specifically what to say, we can always talk on LinkedIn or something like that about that. But yeah, they're really more interested in how you show up and your excitement, curiosity, and willingness to help than all the individual specifics of your background. The problem is that most of us just show up anxious and nervous and like petrified to say the wrong thing. So then all they have left to analyze is our history, right? And so if we can get to a place where we've done mock interviews enough or networking enough that we're comfortable, now we can actually, you know, get into the weeds with them. So to wrap up this section, they're hiring. Why are they hiring for this role? How do your skills solve their problems, and what ROI do you bring to their business? If you can answer these questions, you're going to be in a much better place. All right. Next up, share your unique stories. All right, I'm going to stand up real quick because I've been sitting too long today. Give me a moment. All right, slow moving desk. All right, so when it comes to your stories, this is where you get to actually talk about yourself. So take everything I said in the first one of understanding them. Now understand how you relate to them. Okay. So what are your 4 to 6 best stories? And this is very much interview focused. You really, a lot of times people will download a list of like 100 questions of 100 interview questions, like top interview questions. And then they'll try to think of a unique answer to every single question. That's incredibly difficult. What's even better to do is just find your best stories, and then whatever questions get thrown your way, about a dozen per interview, right? You say, how do I tell this story from that question's perspective, right? So I have a story about the coaching program that I launched a year ago. If they ask me a leadership question, I'm going to tell that story from this leadership perspective. If they ask a conflict question, I'm going to tell about the conflict that happened within that launch. If they ask a struggle question, I'm going to talk about this part that I struggled with. And if they ask like a success question, I'm going to talk about the metrics at the end, right? So you can kind of dissect your story into like 4 or 5 different stories, all from that one project or that one thing you did, right? So don't feel like you lose your story or you lose your project because you told a story about it already. You can always reference back to old stories. Focus on what you learned from each experience and what you can bring into the next role. So what you can do in the future rather than what you have done in the past, all right? So what you don't want to say is, I like to solve problems and I want to make a difference. Why do you want to work? Why do you want to work in this role? I like to solve problems and I want to make a difference. AKA, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why you want to hire me. I don't know what value I bring. Just please give me a job, right? So 4 to 6 stories should be good. And here's maybe a couple prompts for you. So if you want to write these down, what is a story of a time that you struggled? What is a story of a time you succeeded? A time that you experienced a conflict, and a time that you showed leadership. These are very general topics that will answer lots of interview questions. So if you can get you go, oh, that time, and that time was part of this project, and this project has these stories. Now you're in a good place. So like 4 or 5 projects to pull from. And the key here is to not be vague. Has anyone ever like caught yourself answering an interview question really vaguely? Like a good example of this is like, tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker. Well, it's one time I had a coworker and boy, did we have conflict, but we figured it out and everything's cool now. It's like, what happened? That's not an example. That's not a story. I have no details, right? They're far less concerned with what happened than they are with what you learned from what happened. But in order to talk about your learning, you have to set up the story, right? So who, what, where, when, why, how, all these different things, right? Give them the specifics so that they can picture it. So if you had a conflict with your coworker, say I was working on this project at this company. I had a team of this many people, and one of the people on the team, Jenny, and I didn't get along because of this thing, right? And a key thing here is you don't have to talk about the most emotional story. You just have to talk about a example. So like, you don't have to talk about the biggest conflict, just a conflict. So a time that you wanted to do a wireframe and the rest of the team didn't, and it created an issue in the project, or you wanted a blue button and they wanted a green button and you had a bit of back and forth on it, but you came out with a decision, right? Those are all perfectly good examples. Talk about what you did at Coding Temple, right? Your coursework, your projects, your extracurricular activities. All these things are great stories. And then organize them into my butchered version of the STAR method. I actually had a student who, so the STAR method does anyone here know the STAR method? Have you heard of this?
I can't remember what it stands for, but yes,
right.
I have definitely heard of it.
So the STAR method is the situation, task, action, result. It's a way to formulate a story for an interview. So I worked at this company doing this thing. That's a situation. The task was to implement this new software. The action I took was to organize the team in this way and implement the software in this way. The result we got was 80% of the workforce onboarded to the project with, ease, right? That's where most people end. They go, and we did it, yay, right? And you're like, cool. But what it's missing is what you learned. So I broke this down in a different way. The situation, the problem, the action, the result, and the learning. The learning is the most important piece. So let's say we're talking about, again, a conflict with a coworker. The situation was I was working at this company on this project. That's the situation. The problem that arose, they wanted to, have the colors of the website and the buttons be this color. And I wanted the colors of the website to be this color based on my knowledge of color theory and how it impacts people's behavior online. The action that we took, how did we resolve this conflict, is that I had to have a few sit downs with them, explain my side of the story about the research that I had done. And the result was that we put it to the team and had a vote, and their color was picked, not mine. So what I learned from this experience, right? Without this learning, it's just a kind of a lackluster story, right? What I learned from this experience is that even if my color isn't picked, I'm glad that I did the research, made the argument, and provided that information to the team so we can make an informed decision. But I'm also not going to derail a project based on something as small as that. So I'm happy to get on board and just keep working forward, but I'm glad I put my voice out there. And that's what I'm going to do in the future. I'm going to always provide research and reasoning, and then I'm going to go with what the team wants and make sure we stay on track, right? So one of my clients said, I use the spiral method, which is so weird to say, but he goes, I spiral so I don't spiral, because he's a rambler. And I was like, I'm stealing that, because that's a great way to put it. So the whole point of this is so that your stories don't just ramble everywhere. And I'm a rambler, so I should probably use the STAR method more often. Again, what you learned is key. We won't spend too much time on that. And then here's kind of the bigger thing that's also a little bit controversial, but like, answer questions like a politician, all right? So often we wait until the question is asked in the interview to ever think of what we're going to say. They're like, tell me about yourself. And we're like, oh my God, this is the first time I've ever heard someone say that. Let me think of something on the spot right now. It's like, that question's coming. Why haven't you prepared, right? So we should have our stories that we want to tell, that we like to tell, ready to go. And we should have practiced those stories. And then when they say, tell me about a time that you showed leadership, we go, all right, which story do I want to tell from the leadership perspective? And then you just kind of connect the two from that perspective, right? So you already know what stories you want to tell going in before they even ask the questions. And then you just twist the answer a little bit to match their question, right? Now you don't want to do you don't want to be wild like an actual politician and be like, hey, what are your thoughts on immigration? And you're like, well, Joe the farmer, like that doesn't make any sense, right? But you do want to just be like ready with your stories. Here's the 5 stories I want to tell today. Whatever they ask me, I'm going to try and tie it into these 2 or 3 of these 5 stories. All right. And again, focus on what you can do. All right. Even if you don't have an answer, even if you haven't had experience with that thing, say, I haven't had experience with that thing, but given 3 to 6 months or 3 to 6 weeks and a little bit of direction, I'm pretty sure I could get up to speed on that. What are you trying to do as a company with that software? Because I can start honing in on that right after this interview. So here's that thing. Share your stories, all right? What are your top 4 to 6 struggles and success stories? What did you learn from these experiences? And how will they inform your future work? If you can answer these 3 questions, you'll be in a good starting spot for the stories section. Any questions on stories here before we move into the pitch?
2 questions for you.
Yeah.
One, it sounded like you might have said that when we're asked a question on like leadership or what we struggled with or whatever, to talk about that from more than one story perspective.
Sorry,
like
no.
3 stories.
So have your stories ready and then tell. So like I have a story of a time that I worked at a company where we had a job search guarantee product. and it was like a high-end product with high-end support for job seekers. There were a lot of good parts of that project, and there were a lot of difficult parts of that project, right? And there's probably 10 stories within that project, right? So I know that that project is one of my core stories. And depending on what they ask me, I can talk about that project from a multitude of perspectives, right? So tell me about a time that you struggled. Well, I struggled with this part of that project. Tell me about a time that you succeeded. Well, I succeeded in getting the numbers to where they needed to be. Tell me about a conflict you had, this person on this part of this project, right? But what you want is to have like 4 or 5 different projects that you can refer to. Each project has a dozen stories in it. So, or half a dozen stories. So if you have 4 projects that you've worked on, that means you probably have a repertoire of like, I don't know, a dozen or 2 dozen stories that you can tell, even though they're just a handful of projects. So a small number of projects can be a large number of stories, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And should we try and throw some variety in there? Like they asked me the struggle question, go with this one. They asked me to go with that one, as
That's
opposed
why
to
we
like
have 4
using
to
the
6.
same.
Yeah. If all I talked
Okay.
about was that one project, they think that I have no experience. So I have to be like, with this company, I did this project, and here's a couple examples of what I did in there. With this company, I did this project, and here's a couple of things that I did in there. But when you answer questions, just make sure you have one answer and one story for each question. All right. Tell me about a conflict you had with a coworker. One conflict with one coworker. Don't talk about 4 different coworkers. All right. Tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. One strength, one weakness. Don't talk about 4 different strengths and 4 different weaknesses. We don't want to be broad. We want to be specific. They like it when people are specific and can put a picture in their head of exactly what you did. Like if I can picture you at your desk doing the thing, you've done a great job telling that story. Any other questions as we move on to the next slide? Cool. All right, and the slides are coming up, right? You can see, all right, cool. Should have checked that earlier. Bringing it all together. All right, so the main thing I want to get here is like, this is your career narrative. You want to tie your past with your future. A lot of times people want to ignore their past. We're going to talk about why that's not good. We're going to want to simplify your narrative, and we're going to want to write a pitch that ties into their needs. All right. So what should we not say? So why do you want this job? Why did you leave your last job? Well, I left the last job because I didn't like the work, so I quit, or I changed jobs to make more money. Even if these things are true, they're not good stories, right? So we want to tell good stories because what they hear is that I'm going to be a problem. All right. So negative on the negativity. We always want to focus on the positive shifts that you're making in your career and in your life. Sure, COVID might be the reason that you left your last job and started this one, but talk about that from a positive perspective. All right. So there were layoffs at my company due to COVID. And I noticed it was a real opportunity for me to finally dig into to web development, which is something that I've always been interested in, but never really found the time to go all in on, right? And what I was so interested in about it was that it took my love of, languages and music and like learning all these like technical things and put them into a practical space where I could build things that solve real problems for customers and companies. All right. So you're always focusing on that positive, even if it's rooted in something that was like kind of difficult at the time, right? And we want to talk about what we learned about ourselves within each transition, right? So I left marketing to be a career coach. And there's plenty of horribly negative things I could say about marketing and advertising at the end of the day, right? But I also know that there's a lot of good that came out of it, because if I didn't work in marketing, I wouldn't be able to utilize all of that behavioral psychology marketing theory and teach you how to manipulate companies, right? Which is what companies do. They manipulate you into buying their products, right? Why do I have this new monitor? Well, it's because Amazon is great at marketing to me, right? So what we want to do is say, here's what I learned from that I liked, which informed my next decision, rather than ignore my past. Let's just start fresh, right? Because when it says you need X number of years of experience, it might seem like they're saying specifically in this job, But the truth be told, they'll hire people who have experience in other roles, because most of what your job is dealing with office politics, navigating interpersonal relationships with your coworkers. And then at the end of the day, you got to get your work done, and you have to have the technical chops, but you can Google most of that while you do the job, right? There's no closed book test when you're actually working. All right. So we don't want to ignore the past. We want to use it as a differentiator. I am a marketer turned career coach. You are a blank turned web developer, right? That differentiates you. If you're just a web developer, if you're just a junior web developer, if you're just a junior web developer looking to break into the industry, it's a much weaker pitch than I used to be a teacher. I loved creating lesson plans. I wanted to take that organizational mindset into something more technical, and I got into coding, and now I'm really excited to help your company organize your website better and better serve your customers the way I did back when I was a teacher at school, right? Much more comprehensive start to finish story arc, all right? So once we get the past down, we double down on the present. Why do you like what you do? I say, why do you like being a coder? And people say, I like solving problems. And I go, what problems? And they go, what? And I go, what problems? And they go, well, I really love the data. And I go, okay, talk about the data. What is it you love about data? Or I really love interviewing users. Well, what do you love about user research? Or I really love, design. Okay, what do you love about design? Like, double down on the present. And really, that's kind of the passion piece. Like, what do you get excited about? What do you want to work on the most? And then project yourself into their future. All right. Tie your past and your present into the company's future. So I used to do this. I learned this about myself. Now I do this, which helps companies in this way. And I'm excited to help your company improve your customer experience or whatever it might be. So you tie it back to them. And this brings us to our tell me about yourself pitch. All right. This is the question everyone hates. It's not even a question. It's just a crappy statement that we all have to answer at some point in our lives. How do we tie it together? Past, present, future. How did you get here and why should they care? So when I introduced myself to all of you, I said, back when I used to work in marketing, I was taught all these marketing techniques in order to get your money. And now I reverse engineer them so you can get money back from the companies. Right? That's a fun way to tell this story, right? So that's like, I know what my pitch is, and that's a fun way I've played around with it, right? But let's just do the basics. I started my career out in marketing and advertising. I learned that I love behavioral sciences and what makes us do the things that we do. That led me into education, where I got into career coaching, basically reverse engineering my marketing skills for companies to help job seekers land jobs. And now I'm excited to help your students improve their job search, land more jobs. What is it that your students are struggling with? I'm excited to learn a little bit more today. That's how you can kick off an interview, right? So past, present, future. Does that make sense to everyone here? Does anyone want to give it a shot? And we can kind of talk through it together.
Sure, I'll give it a shot.
Give it a shot. All right, Owen, tell me about yourself.
I used to be a mortgage loan originator for a large mortgage company. In doing so, I thought it was much more of a sales role than a creative solution role. I realized that the biggest thing that I liked about it was taking a problem of someone's finances, realizing that it's a puzzle that required my perspective to solve it. And due to that, when I decided to leave that industry, decided to try coding. And in learning coding, I found that it's much like stepping into a maze without a map and finding out that everybody, when they look around that maze, sees a different path. But those different paths can still lead to the same spot and a solution that works. And I love it.
Nice.
I can't wait to do more of it.
This is awesome. I love the language you put in there in the imagery. So I started my
Nice job, Owen.
yeah, bravo. So what I would add in there is, you said I used to do. right? Which is fine, but let's make it even stronger. I started my career out in finance and mortgages, where I learned all about dealing with people in really kind of like stressful emotional situations, because money can always be stressful, and helping them navigate that maze. That's what I really enjoyed doing. This led me eventually into the tech world and coding, because coding is basically taking that sort of puzzle solving mindset to the next level. And then you go into everything you said about what you love about coding. And then instead of just ending there, you tie it back to the company, which is why I'm so curious to learn more about your products and your customers and see what they're, struggling to understand as they kind of interact with your product and how we can improve those experiences for them. So now it's a full story arc. But bravo, that was a really great first shot at it. And now you can bring it all together and make it even stronger. Any thoughts or questions from anyone on that one? Owen, what do you think about it?
For me, it's a lot like the sales techniques that we were taught, is acknowledge the question or concern, respond relevantly, and then pivot to move the question along. Basically, it's allowing you to control the narrative in a way that gives you the opportunity to have the other side see things as you do.
Exactly. I love the way you put that, because that's the truth, right? When they say, tell me about yourself, and I did a mock interview 2 days ago with someone, and I said, tell me about yourself. And they said, well, what would you like to know? And I go, you just blew your opportunity to control the narrative, right? First of all, the person asking you doesn't know what they want to know. They're asking that question because they're lazy and it was the first thing on the sheet they printed off from Google, right? It's not because they have some like amazing understanding of what they're saying. But what you just said, you get to control your narrative. Okay, this person is really, what they're saying is, can you kick off the conversation? I don't know what to say, so can you kick off the conversation when they say, tell me about yourself? So then you get to say, what narrative do I want to put out there that will lead the rest of the interview, right? If I say these things, it will prime them with this knowledge, which I'll then reinforce with all my future answers and make me seem like a great fit for this job, right? So exactly right. We're controlling the narrative. We're controlling the perspective. We're setting off the interview on a good path rather than letting it kind of go all over the place, right? And that's why we do these things. Now, here's how you simplify it even more. Merging a background in my previous role with my current work, I help companies accomplish these things. So this is going to be the pitch that I have you all write now. Here's an example of it. Merging a background in customer service and web development, I help companies create amazing experiences for their users online. It's the simplest version of your pitch. So let's write it out and put it in the chat when you're done. Merging a background in my previous work with my current focus, I help companies accomplish these things. So if I were to do it, merging my background in marketing and career development, I help companies improve student outcomes after they graduate from a boot camp. What would be yours? And here's the example again. All right, Mark, merging a background in criminal justice and information technology, I help companies improve their outreach with a unique understanding of people. I love that. When you say improve their outreach, what do you mean?
I mean, improve their understanding. Kind of like words are really hard. Sorry.
They are. They really are.
I guess improve the understanding between a company and the customers that they serve. with
So-
like the understanding of what each other's needs and wants
Are
are.
you doing IT work? Are you doing web development work? What are you doing?
I was doing IT work before I came here.
Mm-hmm.
So now, yeah, I've been doing web development.
So you want to make sure web development is in there. So merging a background in criminal justice, information technology, and web development. I help companies create online experiences that better connect them with their customers. Something like that.
That sounds a lot better.
Cool. This isn't easy. I understand this stuff's not easy, but that's why we're putting the drafts out there. And then you can use that as your core to build on and, you know, expand upon. All right, Owen. Merging a background in finance, sales, and software development, I help companies efficiently and creatively satisfy their client needs. I love that. It's right on point. All right, Spencer, merging a background in business design and math, I help companies ease the user's experience to help make the experience better. We said experience too many times, but you're right on point. Joshua, merging a background in manufacturing leadership and mentorship. I help companies create teams with people of all different backgrounds and skills, and maybe say that work seamlessly together. Merging a background, so Stephen, merging a background in animation and education game production, I help companies successfully deploy unique and high quality software implementations to their customers. Now, just to be clear, maybe educational game production is what you're focused on now. I just want to make sure that the second piece is what you currently are working on, right? So career development is my current thing, right? But if I were to say merging a background in marketing and consulting, I help schools place students in jobs. That wouldn't make any sense, right? So I need to say my background plus my current work that you're hiring me for equals me getting you these results. All right. Any questions on
Well,
that? Go ahead.
I'm not sure what I get what the difficulty is in what I put there.
I think
Because
you did it right, right?
I do have a background in animation. I do have a background in educational game production.
Uh-huh. Are you trying to get a job in educational game production right now?
I don't have that specific intention.
Okay.
I'm looking at software development, but if it has an educational flair to it, that would be great. But I don't know if I'm going to focus specifically only on those type of companies.
Okay. So here would be my edit. Merging a background in animation, educational game production, and software development, I help companies successfully deploy unique software implementations for their customers. Just being a little more specific with what you're currently applying to.
Okay.
Any questions on this format before we move forward? All right, so the places that you can add this specific sentence that you just wrote, you could put it in your LinkedIn about, you could put it in your resume summary, and you can use it as like a baseline template to start answering the tell me about yourself question. So that past, present, future, this is just a simplified version of that. So now build it out into that started my career doing this, led me to this, or now I do this for your company, all right? So how did you get here? What do you do? And how does it help? Those are the three things that companies want to hear. Any questions? And we can open it up to anything job search related if you'd like.
Not sure how relevant this is or not, but I'm interested in looking at data analytics roles
Mm-hmm.
with the aim of eventually becoming a data scientist. But I'm also interested in like software development. And I'm wondering if I should have two different LinkedIns and just basically cast a huge net and then see what comes in, and or if I should be more like, no, this is what I want to do and really hone in on that.
Having two different LinkedIns becomes a massive headache very quickly. And then merging them is next to impossible. So I would not do that just from a logistical standpoint. But what you can do is change things, right? So if you don't know what you want to do, I would batch it. I would say for the next month or two, I'm going to just look at software jobs, and I'm going to make everything software. And I'm going to go deep into software. I'm going to have a lot of conversations with people about software, and I'm going to find out if I want to do this or I don't want to do this. Then if I find out I don't want to do this, I'm going to go data analysis, and I'm going to change everything over to data analysis. I'm going to go deep. Maybe you have two different resumes, but you could have sort of a hybrid LinkedIn where it says like data analysis and software development. That's perfectly fine. And then in your summary, you say merging a background in blank data analysis and software development. I help companies build great solutions based on their user data, something like that. And that kind of keeps you broad and open. And then maybe tailor the resumes. But batching it will help you not feel so scattered. It's hard to like switch back and forth between like, today I'm talking about data, tomorrow I'm talking about web, today I'm talking about data, tomorrow I'm talking, it gets very exhausting for folks. But there is sort of a way, because they're close enough, they're like in the same world, that you might be able to walk that line nicely.
So you would batch the job search itself, but have a hybrid link.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Or if you want to just, tweak it, just the headline, tweak it to software while you're doing the software stuff, and then tweak it to data when you're doing the data stuff, you can just change the headline, and that's perfectly fine too. I change my headline like every week, so it's not that worrisome. Any other questions as we wrap up today?
Is there like one resource that you would say, of all the resources I know, this is the very best one that you should turn to find job postings, like Indeed or LinkedIn or
LinkedIn's the best place,
yeah.
but job boards are a 1 to 5% response rate. So just know that every 100 jobs you apply to, you'll hear back from 1 to 5 of them. And that doesn't mean you'll hear back a yes. That just means hearing back at all. So people will email me and say, hey, I applied to 200 jobs and what the hell, I haven't gotten one yet. And I'll go, yep, that's the stats. So if I were going to recommend any technology, I would recommend Clearbit Connect. It's an email finder. And what you can do is look up people's emails based on the company they work at. And if you can't find them in the tool, you can always infer it from the other people that do show up in the list. It's a Chrome plugin that goes into your Gmail, and use that to actually connect with people. So you find someone on LinkedIn, send them an email to set up a one-on-one coffee rather than just saying like, hey, let's connect. Because most people, if they connect with you, it's harder to get them to actually talk to you because they already did the nice thing and connected, right? But if the first thing you ask is, hey, let's have a virtual coffee, they're more likely to have that coffee with you. And then afterward, you can connect on LinkedIn. So it's almost reversing it a little bit, starting with the people and then going to the connection. There's a whole lot I could say on that. It's like another half-hour presentation, but Clearbit Connect will let you get anyone's emails, and it's great for follow-ups and it's great for networking.
And it's not creepy to just like send a random email to a very specific
It
email
will
address.
feel creepy. It will. I'm not going to deny that. But you've got to push through it and realize that this is a business transaction, not the dating world, right? You're not like looking up some person's like personal information to like show up at their house. That's not what you're doing. You're saying, here's their professional email. I'm sending a professional message to have a professional conversation. And if they don't want to have it, they'll ignore me and I'll leave them alone. I'm not trying to spam them the rest of their lives. And it's very normal for you to get emails from people you don't know. If they're really cringy, you delete them. If they're spammy, you mark them as spam. If they're kind and welcoming and complimentary, you probably will respond to them. So I'll end by giving you the template that I use here to send that email. So here's
You've been
my
awesome, man.
I appreciate that. So here's my template. I say, hey, recently while researching this industry, and the way that I find people is I look up, I go to the LinkedIn people search. So if you click on the search bar, hit enter, it'll just pull up the search page with all the data, job postings, people, etc. Click on the people button. Again, we're recording all this, or you can look up Martin Mcgovern reverse people search and it'll show up on YouTube. So you click on people, you go to job title or industry, and you put in the industry and the titles that you're interested in. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the filters and put in, I should just show you it, just a second. All right, you can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so if you go to LinkedIn, click on the search bar, hit enter, it pulls you to this page. Don't type anything in. Click on people. There's 755 million people on LinkedIn. All right, too many people to reach out to. So you go to the filters. I like to filter by industry because I'm like ed tech, right? So I only really want to talk to education, technology companies. What did they change it to? If you look up LinkedIn industry codes, you can all see this, right? The industry codes here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, e-learning. That's what I'm always under. I can never get that. I always forget. It's always e-learning. So I type in e-learning. So that narrows it down. And then I type in career coach, right? Show results. Here's all the career coaches that work in e-learning. There's more than that, but that's what shows up with that filter. So you might play with the filters a bit. All right, so now I want to reach out to Neely, who works at Career Foundry. So I go over to my Gmail. I go to Clearbit Connect up at the top here, find emails, go to Career Foundry. There it is. And then I look up Neely. They don't show up. All right. So they didn't show up, but I have all these other people and I can scroll down and say, this person's email is firstname@careerfoundry.com. All right. This person's email is firstname@careerfoundry.com. So I can make a guess that it's their first name. If that doesn't work, it bounces back and never gets to them. No harm, no foul. I go try some other variations and then I send them that template. All right. And the template that I shared with you is recently while researching your industry, your profile came up and it looks like you're doing some interesting things as, a coach at Career Foundry. I'd be curious to learn more about your work. Would you be open to a virtual coffee on this date and time? Short, sweet, call to action. They can say yes or no. If they say no, big deal. If they say yes, now we've got some traction going. And then in the follow-up to that conversation, you can say, hey, would you be open to passing along my resume if a role were to ever open up in the future? Of course, they're going to say yes, because it's a future action. And then you go to the LinkedIn page and you make an alert for all the jobs at that company. So as soon as you get an alert, as soon as they post a job, you're the first one alerted. You reach out to that person that already said that they would help you, and you're at the top of the list with a referral for the job before anyone else. That's like ideal situation. It happened to me once. It's incredible when it does work. They don't always work that easily, but if you can get to that point, this is kind of the how the sausage is made in a way. So a lot more to it than that, but that's just a starting place for you to start playing around. All right.
Thank you so much.
You got it. All right. Now I'll let you go there. Thanks for going a few minutes over with me, and good luck in your search. Hit me up on LinkedIn if you want to stay in touch, and of course, reach out with questions anytime.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you
Cheers,
very
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.